The No Nonsense Roundtable. It's a weekly show broadcast on Rochester, New York's 50,000-watt iHeart radio station, News Radio Wham 1180. The host, Dom Genova, interviews guests from all walks of life, all with amazing stories to tell. What you are about to hear is a recording of a previous broadcast with limited commercials. Now, here's host Dom Genova.
Well, welcome everybody to another edition of the No Nonsense Roundtable. I'm Dom Genova, your host, every Saturday right here, and all the past shows are on nononsenseroundtable.com, like I like to say. So today I have somebody who was introduced to me by a fellow by the name of Greg Smith. He's the CEO of J Advertising. And he says, "Oh, I got somebody that you have to have on your show. She is real. She's something." And I go, "Well, who's Dr. DJ Robinson?" She says, "It's really something." And okay, like I'm taking the recommendation, not knowing anything other than having a recommendation from somebody that I know and respect, and we've become friends since that show. I'm going to have. DJ introduce herself and tell you a little bit about her background, but the thing about is that she's a hoot. I tell you, she's self-accomplished, a doctor in theology, author, motivational speaker. Now I have to tell you something. I saw her give a talk in front of must what 200 people at the Chatterbox Club, which is mainly older women, and for a luncheon, and you had them in the palm of your hands. Oh my Lord, I haven't heard you preach yet, but I have to come to see that, because if you could do that at a luncheon with the with a bunch of women, you can probably do anything. So I'm at that. I'm going to throw it back over to you, and let people know a little bit about you,
Yeah, you're
and
too kind.
the rest of it.
You're too kind. Way too kind. How are you?
Doing
Um,
very well in South Bend today with we call our the grandson LB, little buddy.
mhm.
We're here with
Yes.
little buddy. So
Well, children are a gift from God, and it's a very good thing to have them. And just thank you for welcoming me to your show again. I love talking to you about some of these controversial issues, and we are both able to give our perspectives on so many different things. For your listeners, they should know that I am a womanist theologian, not a feminist. There is a difference, and so the type of perspective that I will be coming from, or at least trying to see things from, is from a Black woman's perspective, especially when you factor in things like ageism, me being middle aged, or not even middle aged. I don't even know what they call my generation, but I think it's somewhere between the millennials and Generation X or something of that nature. And so, what do we actually see from this perspective? So, I'm ready to talk. Whatever you want to talk about, Dom. Let's go. Let's go.
well, we were talking before the show about what's happened since you were last time. You were on the show. We've seen each other a lot since then, but you've been on the show is quite a while,
Yeah.
and is before the election and then after the election. And I think the thing is, when people thought that things couldn't be getting any worse. It was,
Right.
I had a friend of mine who had a sign in his room. I said, I sat musing one day, and somebody came over to me and said, don't worry, things could be worse. And
Mm-hmm.
he says, well, I felt good for a while, and then sure enough, things got worse. So I think that's sort of where we are, because everybody had this anxiety and consternation about the election and what was going on and the sensitivity, and now it seems to be even worse. Do you perceive this?
I think that things are getting way worse. I actually had to take my uh, Facebook app off of my phone just to prevent me from really getting engaged, because things are really bad on social media. You see that there's a lot of high anxiety about different topics. And for me, I can see what is happening and why, and I can understand the logic and the reasoning. I may not agree with how fast things are happening, and I may not agree with some of the methodology that these things are happening in, but I definitely understand the reasoning. And then there's a famous book title that says, start with why. And so I understand why this is happening. And I think that people on the other side of their screens are not really taking into consideration why and how we got here. With as far as the issues in this nation, even here in New York State, there have been some serious controversial issues that have happened. And how did things get this bad? And so, or how did it get set up for this type of result or this type of outcome to happen? Because when you really start to add up the numbers, you start to see, well, this was almost inevitable, the way that this was going, that these series of events are happening in this country. And so then you have to take those things into consideration. However, on social media, you have people who just seemingly have no real social media communication skills. And I'll say it that way because when we sit in front of one another, we can actually hear tone of voice. We can perceive body language and movements. But when there's something like an email or a message chat or something of that nature, you don't really get a chance to grasp the where that person and their perspective and their worldview is actually coming from. You're just reading things on a screen or on a piece of paper with no emotion, no body language, the other 90% of communication, right? And so you're just reading words based on your own feelings at that time. And that's very dangerous.
Well, weren't you telling me once what percent of your communication is body language and how much of it is actual a spoken word or written word? Somebody was, I thought that might have been you who was saying that.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
believe
repeat
that.
that. That's a great concept. Yeah.
Yeah, well, communication is about 85 to 90% body language. It's tone of voice. It's the being in face to face, which is why it's so important that people actually assemble together. It's important that people come to the table, that you're able to see their body language, see what their real intentions are, because that's really what reveals who that person is. It's how they move, how they act, whether or not they're sweating, whether or not their eyes, and so you have a lot of that goes into communication and communication styles. And only about 10%, maybe I'll give it 12% of it is actual the words that people can say. And just like we have seen over these last, let's just give it 12 years. Let's not even focus on the last 4. Let's just focus on the last 12. Prior to this year, we can really see how some politicians and some people, even in media world, can make their mouths say just about anything and really stir up the emotions of the people, and not even and using some of those tactics, those communication tactics, it really can actually drive up more emotion depending on that person's worldview. I've seen a lot of race baiting on some of these media outlets, that are various ones. Like some people, I even got into it with a family member and they called me some kind of Republican. And I was like, well, you're some kind of Democrat, because the thing about it is, if you only listen to certain social media or certain media outlets, you're only given one side or a perspective based on what that social media outlet is. So say, for instance, if you watch a lot of CNN, again, repetition changes behavior. Repetition changes worldview. So if they consistently communicate that one cadence, that one message against or for something or some cause, then people who subscribe or ascribe to that communication outlet will begin to adopt that perspective. Me personally, I listen to them all. I want to know what they're saying on CNN. I want to know what's going on MSNBC. I watch Fox. I watch different outlets. And then sometimes some of the foreign, like BBC, that has absolutely no investment whatsoever. And who cares what's going on in the United States, right? So just having that plethora, and the point that I'm making is not to endorse these outlets, but what I'm trying, because we all know that the No Nonsense Roundtable is the best outlet that we could possibly listen to. But what I'm trying to say here is that it's very important when we're dealing with these type of controversial issues to get a broad perspective and see what everyone is saying so that we can logically define.
Yeah, I had a few months ago. Now, obviously, you know, WAM 1180 is a talk radio station, leaning conservative talk radio station. You know, most of my listeners are over 55, homeowners, because they're coming right off the home repair clinic and whatever. And I had a Pulitzer Prize winning author on. Now, I had the ability of getting a Pulitzer Prize winning author on. His name is David Cay Johnston. David Cay Johnston was Trump's original biographer from 30 years ago.
Wow.
And he gets on the show and he's trashing Trump. I mean, up and down, and I'm not stopping him. I'm not going to argue with him. I mean, this is not what the show is about. The show is not to argue. This is just a show somebody's point of view. You listen to it, you like it, you don't like it. It's like having a cup of coffee with somebody or a drink at an airport bar. I'm not going to argue with the person. And people tattooed me. How dare you have David Cay Johnston on your show, blah, 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 and you should be taken off the air because Wham is, it's like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. All I did was let you hear somebody that has a different opinion than you do. And you should be able to do that. You should be able to absorb, you should be able to go and have a dish that you may not agree with, eat the dish and say, well, I really don't want to eat. I really don't want to eat that anymore. It really didn't appeal to me. And take it like that. One of the things that I want to interject as an opinion myself about what you're talking about. The spoken word can have nuance. And especially these tweets, it doesn't have nuance. You say something and somebody got offended by it. And it's like, you took that the wrong way. Now you're in a spot where you got to defend yourself. You said this and whatever. It's funny the other day because I got into somebody I knew when I worked at Chrysler back in, I met him in like 1986. And we got into this debate, about something online. So I sent him a picture of a snowflake. I figured I knew this guy, snowflake. And he tattoos me. Oh my God! He starts all using these curse words and
wow.
Thinking, oh yeah, effing this and effing that, and you're a jerk when I knew you. You're still a jerk now. It was 40 years ago. Okay, and I think it, like self-evidence. We hold these truths as truths to be self-evidence. If I send you a picture of a snowflake, and you respond to me saying I'm effing this and effing that and SOB and everything, you might be a snowflake.
You might be, but that's their own self-interpretation.
Exactly.
And that's the whole thing, because you could have just been saying, hey, it's snowing outside. So
but anyway, let's talk about what you're doing now. You're talking to people. You're giving your sermons. What is a favorite sermon within all of this stuff lately that you've given to your congregation?
Basically, just try not to. We've been reading a lot about Exodus, the 10 Commandments, and I've been putting Matthew chapter 7 against the backdrop of Exodus chapter 30. The reason why is because, let me just make sure I'm giving your listeners the right scripture. Let me see. But what I've been doing is just making sure that what we are doing as believers, especially those of us who believe the Bible, we believe in Christ, that we believe that God is a higher power than we are. For those of us who have faith in the way of God, I'm encouraging my believers to really just know what's going on in the world, but don't make what's going on in the world your God.
Mm.
And so the golden rules that are outlined in Matthew chapter 7 have a lot to do with not judging others, or at least understanding that, knowing that when you judge others, that you too will be judged by the same measure you judge other people.
Mm.
You also have the ones about bearing good fruit. What does it mean to bear good fruit? What does it mean to ask, to seek, and to knock? When the doors will be open to you, putting your faith into action. Just keeping the congregation focused on not making anything else your God, because this is what the Bible distinctly tells us to do in the First Testament. It says, you shall have no other gods before me. Don't make a graven image of them. Don't bow down to them. I am the God that brings you out of whatever type of slavery or whatever type of bondage that you may be in. And so by not making, and I had to repent myself, because I had really become a news ever since the ceremony. I have been watching the news. Like, that has been my level of entertainment. Like, I don't even watch Survivor or any
Mm.
of the other. That has been my just being in the know of what's happening. And it almost got to the places to where the redundancy of it was starting to take a toll on me. And January 20th was a heavy day for me. It was really heavy, because I felt the shift spiritually. I felt the shift in the people. I felt the shift in the spiritual realm. I felt it, and it was very heavy. The issue that I had to repent for was that I had made the media or the media outlets my God. Before I was even able to function, I was trying to watch YouTube. What was the next big thing? What's the next big topic? Taking that, again, like I said, I took that Facebook app off of my phone so that I would not be tempted to hit the
Yeah.
Facebook button, in the middle of trying to send an important email.
Yeah.
I've now checked my Facebook for 20 minutes and I'm not working. And so, here's a little plug. When they ask you to name 5 things that you did for work, well, did you check your Facebook instead of sending the appropriate emails? Were you
Oh,
actually working? And so that's just me being who I am.
well,
And so with that, I actually began to encourage the congregation, don't let this thing become your God.
well, and the other thing though is that just the very nature of this has
Mm-hmm.
in a bell curve you have standard deviation. Obviously you have a flat bell curve and there's people on either side, okay?
Right.
And the people that were really wacky never had the voice that they have now. I mean, think about it. There are people online that say that the world is flat and they have voice. I mean, these people would never have voice. I mean, they would have
Right.
these people put them away, and they're adamant that the world is flat. And,
Right.
and those people are online picking away at the edges, and you have people on the other side picking away at the edges. That's one of the debates I got into with David K. Johnston. Actually, is that after the recording, he was saying, well, the Republicans are going to eliminate a birth control, all told, in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, I'm worried about some things happening and some things not happening. I don't think that there's a snowball chance in hell you're going to eliminate all forms of contraception.
No.
And
No.
and if you're going to make that an issue, then you're picking away at a ridiculous assumption. And that's where we are. We're talking about things that, well, some of them can come to fruition, some of them can't. Now the things that are happening now, the big changes and whatever. One of the things that I take a look at is I think, and see if you agree with this, is that there's sort of a lack of perspective. I mean, okay, they're laying off, which is unfortunate, 3,500 people from the IRS, but the IRS also has 100,000 people. Now, having worked at Chrysler Chrysler Corporation, we went out of business like every 8 years. You come to expect,
Right.
back in the 70s, there was loan guarantees. And then in 93, 94, we almost went out of business. And then it was 2008. And there was one time, I think it was in 2008 or 2009, as a dealer, they sent a letter to you overnight telling you whether you're going to keep your dealership or not. Okay, so I'm used to this thing. Saying there's 3,500
Right.
people laid off, that's fine. But but Bed Bath and Beyond, closes, and there's 3,500. We're not up in arms about that. We're up in arms about the IRS, and I think that you have people stoking this from either side. I mean, wouldn't you agree with that?
I think that it's business as usual. If anybody understands business, they, like you just laid out so eloquently, we go through this type of a cycle on a regular basis. Every business has to take inventory on whether or not they are engaging in practices that are ethical, that are going to promote their business. Are they average? You have to look at advertising, you have to look at marketing, you have to look at income revenues. You also, and one of the biggest things that we have to look at in any type of business, how much is this going to cost? How much does it cost to stay in operation, and where can we cut costs? Even when COVID, a lot of people who were paying for studio time now found that, by getting a subscription to whatever, podcasting platform, that you could actually, it wouldn't be as good quality, but you could do it. YouTube made a huge boom, with the, technology and things of that nature. So I think that business as usual, if you can understand that this is a business practice and not get so emotionally involved about 3,500 people out of how many thousand?
It's about 90 to 100,000 people.
To 100,000 people, what is that? Less than 15%? I mean, let me take out my calculator, and find out how much of the workforce is actually being reduced.
It's like 3%. You're taking 3%. But the other thing I've heard online is the argument that why should government run like a business? I mean,
because the United States is a business. We're a business.
Because it's your money. The whole thing is they're taking your money and they are deciding how to spend your money. And this is sort of analogous to, and those of us that are of my age remember Ronald Reagan. Okay. And Ronald Reagan, it's sort of the same thing with people's mental state right now. Ronald Reagan, he's going to get us into a war, and Ronald Reagan, tear down this wall, Mr. Gorbachev. Oh my God, he can't say that to all this stuff, and Ronald Reagan trying to reduce the size of the government and whatever. And I'm not making any comment about strategy and tactics. All I'm saying is that this happens. The pendulum swings one way, then the pendulum swings the other way.
Right.
If you were looking at the election, all told, I'm looking at it very, very curious. I mean, there are people who would not admit they were going to vote for Trump. They would not admit it. That's like nobody looks at anything naughty online, right? I mean, that's and nobody admits their sins allowed to be.
That's the quiet, right? Yeah. Only in confession booths.
Yeah, right. And
if you're Catholic.
Yes. Well, I do go through that every once in a while. It's amazing how much I repeat myself from time to time. But anyway, the idea that this is something unusual is really not true. This is the way it happens. The pendulum swings one way.
This is the way it goes. This is the way it goes, and it's business. I mean, if they were only taking money from only a certain demographic of and a certain age of people, then you could probably emotionalize it. But since they tax everybody, right?
Right.
No, it's business. It's not a personal thing. Everybody is getting taxed. Everybody is having life happen to them right now. The cost of eggs, just because someone else can afford eggs in one grocery store and someone else may not be able to afford them based on how much they make, doesn't change the fact that eggs are the price that they are. It doesn't change the fact that the tax bracket percentages are what they are. And especially here in New York State, I'm taxed not only in my paycheck, I'm taxed on my businesses. I'm taxed if I make any money from selling books. I'm taxed if if you're honest and you actually fill out the appropriate forms, you get taxed on everything. So it is in my best interest to know, what are you doing with my tax money? Because it seems as though all the taxes seem to be doing, especially on working class individuals, is going up.
Yeah.
Let's cut the waste. If we can find out that I'm paying Social Security taxes out of my check, my business, and any of my other profits, all three of streams of income that I have to work to afford eggs, right? So if they're taking money out, I want to know, where is it going? Do these people even exist? Or has John Doe been dead for 100 years and you're still taking my 3 cents out of my Social Security tax to pay John Doe? I mean, somebody tell me the answer here.
Well, I got to tell you, when I was a car dealer, I did this ad. I said, well, they're going to contribute, $300 to this charity for every car that you buy, right? I mean,
Right.
whatever it was, save the whales, for every dog, an animal shelter. Well, instead of you giving $300 of my money to, save the whales, why don't you just give me $300 when I pick up my car, and let me put it to let me
whatever I want
it to. Maybe my charity is me. Maybe my charity is my suffering, aunt. I mean, like, what? Okay, you're going to donate $300 of my money for something
right.
that is important to you, and
Well,
that's what this boils down to.
Yeah. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but you made me think of something. And by the way, it's Exodus 34 for your listeners. That was the 10 commandment thing. But there's a scripture in the Bible that says that charity begins at home. And so we take that you made me think of that when you said, hey, listen, am I giving, you're going to make me give $300 to save the whales, and we don't even know if it's going to get there, because most of it goes into administrative costs and payroll. Right. And so what are we really saving, right? We still end up on the shore and it's on the news, right? So, but then there's this other part, there's this principle in biblical narrative that says that charity begins at the home. It is about taking care of your home and your sick aunt and your elderly and your the orphans and the widows. And then this is why I don't understand that people who claim to be believers of this word and of this Bible and the principles that it in this nation being quote unquote founded on the principles, why don't we get the America First concept? If charity truly begins at home, shouldn't we be taking care of the people that are already here, that have been born here, for generations have been here, right? Why aren't we taking more care of that? I think I heard them say that our country is only less than 300 years old? What is it? Less than 400 years old?
Yeah, it was 1776. So, it's been a couple of, 250 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're not that old as a country.
Now, the funny thing is that when you go to Europe, they have a different way of looking at life. When you're sitting in a piazza and the clock tower was built in 1450, they actually know there will be a tomorrow. We think there's going to be no tomorrow.
Right.
So, we build a building, if it's up for 75 years, we think it's old. It's just a perspective that we have. But but let me pose this question to you. Is being offended becoming a desirable trait for people? I mean, do they purposely get like an endorphin hit when they see something that offends them online? I mean, do you think that is that it, or is it something else?
I think it goes deeper than that. I think, to see something offensive online and then draw attention to it for likes, that's a dopamine hit.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Does that make sense what I mean? Because you see something offensive. You have John, I think it's, I don't have all my notes in front of me, but I believe it was John Adams. He said something about the psychology of temptation. And so anytime you're tempted to do something, then you immediately can divert your attention to something totally else, and eventually, and that whatever that was, it'll eventually pass, because nobody's going to remember that in 100 years. However, if you begin to bring more attention to it, oh my God, that was so offensive. And then you begin to wrestle with it, and you begin to try not to engage it. But by trying not to engage, you're actually engaging even more. You're starting to kind of get tangled up into that whole web. Mm-hmm. Now, because we have social media, normally you would tell someone, your neighbor, about it, like what happened to me and, you know, what I saw or whatever the case may be. Now you have a platform of how many ever followers that follow you on your social media handles. Well, you can post it out there, and now you're trying to actually look for people who have seen the same thing or have been offended by it at this also, or even those who have not been offended. Now it's strumming up this huge conversation, this huge thread, and you keep going back and checking whether or not someone liked it or somebody commented or somebody. And so these are the dopamine hits. So you actually set yourself up.
Well, you know, and people do that. I have, you know, I don't, in the great scheme of things, I don't have as many listeners as like Joe Rogan and all these guys. I mean, listening to the radio show, I got, you know, maybe 7,000, you know, people, 12,000 people. On the social media thing, I got, you know, maybe 6,000 on YouTube and 6,000 on Facebook. You know,
it's more than 5.
It's a nice group of people. And somebody was somebody was criticized. The guy is the head of an organization here in Rochester, and you know, he's critical. Well, you only have this many people. I don't care. You know, so you know, it's enough people for me. That's why, you know, okay, follow, don't follow, whatever. You know,
more than 5.
You know, I got to tell you something. It was Weeze who put it this way about ratings. He says, you know, whoever's listening to you, you're number one to them.
Right.
He says, I don't look at it. You know, it's this many people, it's that many people. You're number one to them. If they're listening to you, you're engaging with them. You're number one to them. You know, who
yeah.
It's a difference what it is. And, you know, and I think that's what's happening with a lot of the kids these days too. You know, they want to have 1 million followers or 2 million followers, and that's where they get their self-esteem from. And the other thing is that you know, I'll throw this out to you. You know, this idea where everybody gets a trophy. I think that's I think has been harmful for our children. We decided that our kids didn't have good enough self-esteem, you know, 20, 30 years ago, and we started giving them participation trophies. Now, that's not the way the world works. I mean, certainly with you came from very humble and difficult conditions as a child, and you've lifted yourself up and become what you are, which is something substantial. And it wasn't because you were given things. It wasn't, you weren't given pats on the back because you just showed up.
Well, I think that I wasn't given anything tangible, but I was given opportunities. And I think that that's what we need to teach our young people, is how to seize opportunities to advance themselves and to actually be interested in themselves. I think a lot of the interest, we've tried to direct our young people to be interested in things that are external to them. But if we begin to tell them to, you know, or teach them or give them the tools to draw introspection and to be able to look within themselves for the power that they need, for their interests, for their goals, instead of trying to trend. And that's what happens. They make, and this goes back to that Exodus 34, do not have any other gods before me. Right. And so we have allowed our young people to look outside themselves to find out what's trending and try to imitate that. And of course, you know, they said that negativity spreads faster, or, you know, moves at a different speed before you even find the truth out, you know, of what really happened. The negative has already, you know, circled the earth twice. I don't know. I know how, you know, the concept of what I'm trying to hit at. And so I think that a lot of the negativity that has been playing on the radio stations, and I'm talking about, I can only talk about, you know, in Black culture, some of the music that is so degrading toward these young people, and that the topics, you know, I mean, you couldn't find anything else to talk about, nothing else to talk about, except for all of these, and it's hit on a repetitious, and I don't know if I'm going on a tangent, but it's repeated on 15-minute intervals for ratings. And when you go into ratings, what is hitting? And so now these young people are looking to this image of them that's been perpetuated or propagandized. I don't know if that's really even a word, but I know that it's been sent out, it's been perpetuated, it's been put in front of them repeatedly on social media, it's been put on the radios, it's been put on the TVs, it's been put, and they're sitting in front of this narrative and adopting this narrative rather than looking within themselves for what their true interests are and going along with this negative wave of status and trying to put their, and this is where they're trying to draw their self-esteem out of.
Mm-hmm.
So if the young lady wears thigh cut shorts, or a half top and has her boobs hanging all out, makes her feel as though, because of, according to the song, according to the narrative that's been played in front of her, this is making her the baddest, this, that, and the third. I don't curse on the station, but she's the baddest. And because this young man has a gun and some rims, and he's got gold chains and lots of money, and he's throwing it at the woman, that makes him some type of status figure. And this is a false narrative. Mm-hmm. It's a totally false narrative, but this false narrative has captivated our young people and these generations that have come after us to make them believe that this is something that will boost their esteem. And it's only a temporary boost, because after the money is gone, after the day is passed, what is it? You have nothing.
Right.
Nothing but a like.
Right.
On social media, you have nothing but that quick dopamine high that you got. Now you have to start the process all over again.
My wife Nita talks about an external locus of control or an internal locus of control. Right. Are you being dragged by things outside of your soul, or is it your soul yourself? And that's what you're talking about. You're talking about where are you getting your self-esteem from yourself and what you are, or somebody else's opinion of you, right?
Right. And what other people think about you really doesn't matter, because nobody will remember it in 100 years unless it changed the world, unless you got up unless they murdered you in front of billions of people, like put you on a cross or something. You understand what I mean? Like, it's
I gotcha.
So, we have to really, when it comes down to guiding our young people and these generations, I get pretty passionate about it, because it's not even them. I think that it is the generation that birthed them that did not have the tools to pass down as far as self-esteem. And it's not them. Like, this current generation that I'm working with now is not them. It's more or less the adults that have birthed them, that are probably no more than about 17, 20 years older than them.
Okay. Conceptually, what you're saying, it's not the crop, it's who planted the crop.
It's who planted the crop.
Right. So let's talk about that for a little. I know we're going a little long here, but
can I make a quick point? Political.
Yeah, go ahead.
If crop is the business of the United States, we have a bad crop.
And who planted the crop?
And who planted the crop is the question.
You can't blame the wilted crop. The crop didn't plant itself.
Yeah. Okay. Too much crap and ruined the crop.
Too much crap in the crop. Okay. Oh, that's why I love you. That's so good. No, there's probably a better analogy than crop. There's probably raising a raising a flock or something like that. But who planted the crop? Now
who planted the crop?
Okay, who planted the crop? Okay, so what did they do or not do back then? Now you are not a fan of throwing money into communities that explain a little bit of that, because that's more of a that leans more right than it does left as far as the concept goes.
Okay. So I'll give you an example. The DEI stuff.
Right.
So, and this is just, I don't care if anybody likes it or not. Al Sharpton got on the TV. First of all, from what I understand, and have your listeners write in or call in or whatever if I don't have all of these facts straight. But from what I understood, based on all of the outlets that I watched, is that Al Sharpton took, first of all, he got $500 million from the last administration electoral run, right?
Okay.
And then when they did the DEI thing with this current administration and they began to cancel it, he rallies a group of Blacks, and I can say that he rallies a group of Black people and he gives them $25 Costco cards, and they have a not a boycott, but a quote unquote boycott, BUYCOTT. Okay, got it. So they make this big political stunt. He throws $25 gift cards at these people and tells them to go into Costco's, of all places, Costco's, with a $25 gift card and buy something. You can't get gum in Costco's for $25. Okay, you might get a big pack of gum, or maybe, a one big bulk thing and some water and some toilet paper, maybe. Right? The rest of it is on you. And if you don't have money, so then that was just it really perturbed me. I'm using a nice P word on your show. It perturbed me and it disturbed me, because this is the game that people play, trying to throw money at a situation when there are real underlying conditions or underlying things. The other thing about that too is all of this money that's supposed to be coming into these programs. We're going to put a home buyers program, and we're going to put a start your business program, and we're going to have the MBEs and the WBEs, and we're going to give you all this money. Well, guess what? DEI did not benefit Black people as much as it did white women. 55%, the statistics are 55% of white women were the ones that were eligible for that money.
Okay.
So throwing money at situations, it might not even reach the people that you're throwing it at. And so, I really got upset, because then, the churches, they were trying to say, well, we need to take this up as an issue. I said, for what? It's never benefited Black people anyway. Why are we marching when only 10% of minority women businesses that are African American are actually even considered for these contracts?
That speaks to another guest, and people can go on my YouTube channel and find the interview I did with a guy by the name of Frederick DeBoer. Now, Frederick DeBoer, world known, and he wrote a book lately, and it said how the elites ate the social justice system. In other words, back in the day, and I had this little lady on. I don't want to say little old lady, because I think she's younger than I am. On the show a couple of months ago, maybe last year. Her name is Carol Crossett, and Carol Crossett is an activist for a pro-life group.
Yeah.
And then after the interview, she goes, "Oh yeah, we were all part of the social improvement protests back in the 60s. I go, yeah, okay. She goes, the March on Washington and whatever. She goes, I got arrested 17 times. I go, you got arrested 17 times? She goes, yeah, one of my jobs was to teach other people how to get arrested, arrested safely. And that dovetails exactly what Frederick DeBoer was saying in his book that I just interviewed this fellow. He says, back in the day, the social change came from the ground up, and people protesting peacefully and gumming things up, a garbage strike, a bus strike, whatever it is, and just gumming things up. He says Now he says it's either throwing Molotov cocktails and rocks, which doesn't do anything for anybody because nobody really likes that, all told. That's no way to get change. He says, or you have people that hijack the system. They start raising all this money. They spend the
Yeah.
money on themselves, or they throw their money at things that are really not helping the people that they're supposed to be helping because the people that they're helping are not really involved in the process at all.
Right. Right. And that is the crap on the crops.
Crap on the crops.
It's too much crap in the crops.
Too much crap in the crops.
I'm serious because just think of it. You know, they changed human resources to the word human capital
Really? Okay.
in certain businesses or whatever they call it, the human capital. Well, humans are capital because guess what? If we don't work and we don't pay taxes, the government is not funded, and then we don't have a government. If we don't have a government, we don't have autonomy. We don't have, you understand what I'm saying? Like we don't have a country. So guess what? You know, right now, even with the 3,500 layoffs of one department of this huge government that all of us are being taxed to pay for, if they don't when you look at who's going to work, let's talk about with all of this mass deportation that everybody is so afraid of. Okay, so farmers are saying my workers are not showing up to farm. Okay, that's what I'm hearing on social media outlets or on media outlets. All right. Well, then how about this? In the city right here where I live, I think I was asking you when we were talking a little bit, where can our teenagers actually walk to get employment?
Mm-hmm.
Where can they go where they can go in? The hair store in our neighborhood is not owned by people who are natural born citizens here or have enough resource to even hire anyone from our neighborhood. We have a gas station, but that one is owned, it's not owned by anyone here locally. We have, or even a corporation. It's not even owned by a corporation. It's owned by a private business, but that private business is not invested in the community. Then you have one place on the west side, southwest side of the city that's actually in walking distance or at least bus distance for any one of these teens from any one of the schools that is in the area to walk to work, maybe after school or something. It's Tops on West Avenue. Where else can they go to work that they would actually be able to walk in, put in a job application, and get hired?
Right.
And not have to catch two buses to get there. What I'm trying to point to is that if you don't make the jobs accessible to people who are of able body and working age, then what we end up doing is throwing people in pockets. And this points to your point, and throw money at them through subsidies, through housing assistance, through what do you call it? The food assistance, which I'm saying all of these programs are good, but if you don't provide the economic resources or their opportunities, you don't have to don't give them anything, give them opportunity.
Yeah.
We don't have anywhere to work.
Right.
So of course, if you can't get transportation, if you don't have anywhere that's reasonably to work in your area, you either have to establish your own business in your community, which all of those are taken because we have stores that are owned by, let's just say a safe word for your show, Middle Eastern descent people. Every 3 to 4 blocks, they're not hiring anybody from the neighborhood.
Right.
If anything, they're capitalizing on people's emotional and social and addiction struggles, which is the beer, the cigarettes, blunt papers, and lotto.
Yep.
These are These are what their this is where they make the majority of their money, on the illnesses of these pockets of poverty. This is something that needs to be addressed. This is the crap on the crops, because if you don't have people who are able-bodied and working, then you don't get the tax revenue, and then you don't fund the government, and then you call yourself importing people that are not even paying into the government. They're sending that stuff back home to their countries.
Well, and the other thing too is that, just changing the subject just a little bit.
I'm sorry if I got
no,
off.
no. This is good stuff. This is why I love talking to you. One of the things too is that, it's, college, 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 college. If you want a good job, the trades are looking for people. If you're a heating and air conditioning gal,
Right.
or an electrician, or if you become a union electrician, my Lord, you're set for life, and they're looking for people for their training programs. So I
But
mean,
see,
let's teach people to do something, that there is an end game to it, because just because you got a college education doesn't mean that you have a marketable skill. And I give this speech all the
right.
time. A marketable skill. You can have a
Right.
degree, you can have college debt, you have no marketable skill. But
Right.
to your point, there's no place for somebody to advance themselves and go and make a living for themselves. There's a desert there. Now, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. You and I talk all the time about cause and responsibility. It's not my cause.
Yeah.
Okay, something that happened
Right.
50, 100, 200 years ago. That's not my response. That's not my cause. That is I did not cause that, but I have a responsibility to it. So we have to
Yeah.
admit that we have a responsibility to take care of these things one way or the other, and you have to take care of them on some other way than throwing money at it.
Money. Right. Or
Yeah,
grant, or some
yeah.
kind that takes so much administrative cost to even get up off the ground. And this is a part of the reason that I'm glad that this current administration is finding plays to cut the crap.
Mhm.
I mean, cut the crap, and they can call it waste, fraud, whatever they want to. It's crap. It's too much. Here's a way you can kill a plant: by over fertilizing it.
Yeah.
And I think that if you look at this, and I probably am going to get in trouble, but it's okay. If you understand the point of what I'm trying to make, people want to work.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Maybe people have been socially conditioned as to there's a generation of people who have been conditioned to become dependent on subsidy and on government handouts. And I think that was a setup that was put in motion to oppress and keep and have people to self-oppress or self-suppress themselves, like self-suppress. Because if you become dependent on something, here's the one again, the golden rule that I've been encouraging my believers, or my congregation, is that the believers should not have any other God before them. The government should not be your God. The government should not be where you look for your resources, and look for your food to come from, and look for your housing to come from, and look for your shelter to come from. No, you are your greatest resource. And this is what I want everyone to believe. You are your own human capital. You are capital. You have all of it, everything that you need. The potential is in you. What is happening is, and why there's so much frustration, is because the means that we need to be able to perpetuate, to generate wealth, to generate economic growth, not just for our own communities, but for society as a whole, to make that contribution towards society. There are pockets of people, and I'm not going to say Black people, because I found out that there are just as many Caucasians that are dependent and reliant on the system as there are Blacks, right? And then with the influx of migration or immigration, or however you want to call that, whatever the proper word for that is, when that overwhelmed and bogged down the system, and it turned into a backfire And then not having the means within those communities that these subsidized programs serve. The bureaucrats are being paid for running the program, and the millions of dollars that are coming into the program are not even reaching the people to get them out of poverty.
Mm-hmm.
And so what is cut the crap? Cut the crap.
Who
You know,
who thinks that this is who thinks this is doing things over and over again that are non-productive. Something's
it's not
changed.
productive. But
Here's
you
the
can't
thing.
not know that it's non-productive and then continue to do it. So that's when people begin to take it personal and start to distrust the system, because you can't say that this has been going on for at least 50 years. Okay.
Mhm.
And it's not producing good people. And if we as a people, as humans, as a certain culture or a certain demographic, whatever it is that is being targeted now, then if we are human capital and you need us to work, you don't have to outsource the work. We have plenty of people here in these United States that are able-bodied, all of the young people, to work. And then to your point, I'm sorry, I'm kind of going in a
Oh, go
tangent,
ahead.
but with the school, in order to get ahead, you need to go into debt. What?
Yeah.
Sense. That is a backwards hustle if I've never heard one before. And I tell my young people that I'm able to touch, get a skilled trade. What we need is more unions to come into the city. Come and get an office in the city. Don't be way out where no one can reach you, but come into the city. And this is where I tell some of the church, say, you guys really, really need to get it together, because you have tons of real estate where you could invite these unions in to do these programs, or just to do the training, or have just to find out what the need is. Because if you run it through a program, they're going to get $500 million and we're only going to see 2,000 of it. Like, you don't do the program thing. Just come in and get the stuff. Bypass, like how I love what Donnie is doing. Bypass some of these regulations. Get in here and get to work. Come in and grab the people and let's go to work.
Well, I think that change is very hard for people to comprehend.
Yeah.
And the thing is that some change is good, and some change is questionable, and some change is bad, has unintended consequences. I mean, this thing with the bail reform and whatever. I think a lot of people have very good intentions, but I think it also has unintended consequences. I like what Sheriff Todd Baxter said about the thing. He says you need fire prevention. You want your school to have fireproof carpeting and proper entrances and exits and whatever. He says, but you also need fire trucks.
Right.
You need somebody to put out the fire. If there's a fire, you need somebody to put out the fire. He says, so you can't go defund the police and think that you can solve the crime problem. You can't say, well, somebody was brought up in an environment that did not provide for them the emotional support that they should have had, and solve the problem. You can't go backward in time. You need a fire truck and you need fire prevention. And I think that's very true. But I also think that in a bureaucracy, and I like to liken back to when I worked for a corporate Chrysler. It was a bureaucracy. It was a bureaucracy. You can't go backward with anything. Once you establish a program, you can't go backward. Once you give somebody a raise, you can't take 3% from them next year because things aren't as good. Once you go forward, you can't go backward. So that's one of the things, is that you get yourself into this trap where if you want to take something backward, you can't do it. You can't eliminate a department or whatever. It's almost comic. People are going to get, it's funny because you say something sometimes and people think it's not funny. You're trying to make a funny statement out of it. Where was the protest when they did away with toll takers? I mean, right?
Right.
I mean, okay, we eliminated all these toll takers. Now that guy, he was supporting his family. She was supporting
Right.
his family as a toll taker. They should not have done away with toll booths, right? Where was that?
Mm-mm.
Okay, okay. There's none of that back then, right? And
Nope.
and now, oh, they're gonna let people go for this, that, or the other thing. Well, that's life. That's the way.
I think that
There's a you probably, I don't know if you ever watched Downton Abbey, but Downton Abbey, they had the guy who's the Lord or whatever has a valet, and the
mhm.
valet provides it takes out his clothes every morning and sets them up for him and whatever. And they're like, well, we really can't afford to do this anymore. But where Jason there, what would he do if he wasn't a valet? I have to employ him as a valet. Well, you know what? Yeah, okay.
You know what I would love to have back?
What?
Full service gas stations.
Went to New Jersey. They got that in New Jersey.
Oh, there was only one here,
Yeah.
but I would love to have. I said, where are the full service gas stations? I went to the one on East Avenue, right by before you get to Wegmans, going from away from the city. And I tipped that guy. Yes, the gas
Oh
was
yeah,
more
yeah, yeah, yeah.
expensive, but I tipped the guy so good every time.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then they changed it to self-serve.
yeah, yeah.
Like, where is the service
Yeah.
now?
Oh yeah.
Service jobs are prominent.
Well, wait, I mean, even going to McDonald's and whatever now, you get the screen. You go and they say, well, let's make it, $20 an hour. You make $20 an hour, and what happens? They try to eliminate the expense someplace else. So I get that.
They're
You know,
going to cut the cost somewhere.
so the point of this is that people see you as a woman of color. You said it was a melanin. What is it?
Melanated. I have
Melanated
more melanin in my skin.
or melanin? I have to remember.
That's all.
I have to
That's the
remember that
only
word.
difference.
No, but no. I think it's a very I think it's a very valid point. The thing is that so they assume that you're a Democrat and you're a Biden supporter. We're a Biden supporter.
Nope,
I see you
not
shaking.
at all.
Not at all. Because you believe in this, this societal aberration that we have in that we're throwing money at things that really don't work and something needs to be changed. And you are upset with that. That's
I think like
makes
again,
it very interesting.
people do need subsidy. They do need a leg up. But the thing about it is, don't give people a leg up and then not give them the opportunity. Like, for instance, I needed, when I decided to have a family, I needed some help, right? And there were instances in my life that I needed help. What was different about me is that after I got my bachelor's degree, and I was able to work in I was able to work for another company, or I was able to level up as far as my employment. I was able to, when I got my cosmetology license, so I was able now to work two separate jobs to work. And so the Monroe County Department of Human Services sent me, because I was honest, I reported, my income. And they said, well, for your family size, this is the limit to the amount of money that you can make. And I think it was like $2,000 or something like that for a family of two. You can only make $2,000 or something minimal. I don't have the exact numbers, so that's my disclaimer. But it was like somewhere like 2,000 or 2,300 or something you could make a month to be able to qualify for food,
Wow.
for what is it, SNAP, right? So it's the nutrition program to be able to get food stamps. And I remember, Dom, and this is why I'm so adamant about when God says, don't make anything else your God. Okay.
Mm.
Because I said to myself, I almost lost my mind. I was like, oh my God, they're going to cut me off. They're going to cut me off. Do I need to reduce my hours so that I could stay on the system? Right? What am I going to do without my food stamps?
Mm-hmm.
And it dawned on me, because I'm smart. And he says, you have money.
Mhm.
You don't qualify anymore,
Mhm.
which means you don't live below the poverty line. Don't reduce your hours, increase your hours. Go back to, you have an opportunity now to capitalize on, you know, economic growth. You can grow now, right?
Mhm.
And so I said, okay. And as soon as I accepted that, I started clipping coupons. I found other ways to make things work at the grocery store, right?
Mhm.
Because I didn't have this needy families, limited income anymore. And I was glad. But the thing about it is, what I think is that people have been socially and psychologically conditioned to believe that if they lose their food stamps, the sky is going to fall out of the orbit.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I'm like, what? It's not going to fall out over if you trust God and you have faith. A way will be made. And here's the other thing, since we're talking about biblical principles, there is a scripture that says that if a man laboreth not, he eateth not. Now it says that we should take care of the widows and we should take care of the orphans and we should take care of the fatherless and
Mhm.
things of that nature. Yes, and we should visit people in prison. But here's the whole thing. We should have work.
Yeah. Yeah.
We should have work. And I think that's where our county, our city, and our elected officials are doing a very serious disservice to these pockets of poverty, because they are allowing these corner stores and these convenience stores that will not hire people in the neighborhood. There should be some type of mandatory requirement that if you open a store in our neighborhood and in our community, that you should at least have 2 employees from that neighborhood or from that community. Something like that. I don't know if that's exact, but something like that. People should not be able to come into our neighborhoods and capitalize on the addictions, capitalize on the poverty, capitalize on the subsidies, and then go back to their neighborhoods, because they don't live in our neighborhoods.
Mhm. Right.
They take their money back out to Brighton. They take their money back out to Henrietta. They take their money, and even in the school systems, where people that don't live in the city can come and get money, city taxpayer money, and then they take it back out to their respective places.
Well, in some sense, I think that is the hope of these tariffs, because what it's going to do is going to make the stuff that is made overseas more expensive, which is going to be able to. It's not going to be a quick fix, but
No, it's not a
but
quick
but,
fix, but
but
it's happening pretty quick.
yeah, but if you get to the point where the manufacturing is able to be made here, okay,
Right,
because there's some penalty for having it made overseas, well then
right.
then the jobs should come back. I mean, that is the theory. I'm not saying I have an opinion about this, other than that's the theory. When you
I
start
am
giving people,
hoping
yeah,
that is the case. That's why people are,
that's right.
you're a Trump supporter. No, I am a truth supporter.
Mhm.
We need jobs in our neighborhoods. We need to be able to work. Able-bodied people should be able to work. Now, if something happens and I become disabled, then yes. But there are other things that people can do. Just because, if, say, for instance, if I'm not, well, I don't want to say anything negative about myself, but just say, for instance, I'm not able to function or stand with my hairdressing business. I'm not able to stand as long as I used to, right?
Right.
Okay, well, there's something that I can do
Mhm.
to make money.
Right. Well, the thing is, we need jobs where people
We
make.
need jobs.
Well, people make things. I don't care, whether it's
Oh,
making something intellectual property, if you're making a video game, you're making a widget, a piece of clothing or whatever.
we
And
need
we
to
need
be able to work.
work, right? And you and I talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs all the time. I mean,
Yes,
that's the thing.
yes,
The first thing you need is oxygen. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Not to sound cruel or insensitive. The people in Gaza and the Ukraine are not worried about about pronouns. You know what I mean? They want to live.
Not at all.
They want to live. You know,
We
they
want to
be
live.
safe. They want to be able to have their children be raised in an environment where they're going to thrive and be successful.
Right.
You know, and in this country, we have pockets of people that are striving, you know, for the oxygen and the food and the way of advancing themselves. And
Right.
it's very hard when there are no jobs and when there are
Well,
no jobs.
right. That when you look at that hierarchy of needs, right?
Right.
You have the physiological needs. That is the basic foundation. Everybody needs to have has a need, and they have the right to be, with food and water and warmth and rest, right? Everybody has that need. But when you begin to move up higher on that pyramid, people want to feel secure. They want to feel safe. Well, here's how economic stability, or moving that economic opportunity, or moving those jobs, or moving those opportunities back into the city where in these pockets of poverty will help. Because now, if I'm going to work and everybody is going and on their way to work that's in my neighborhood, then guess what? There's no time for crime. You should be so busy working. And here's the other thing, up on the higher, right before you get to self-actualization, having that feeling of accomplishment brings that self-esteem.
Yes.
This is what our young people need. They need to feel accomplished. They need to feel that they're making an impact, that they're working. The young boys, they don't add and they don't read as well. And I don't know a boy who probably did, you understand, in school,
right.
in grammar school, right? So, but can they work with their hands? Can they have enough patience to measure? Can you teach them how to measure something? Can you teach them how to do and work with their hands, and then let them go do that? Who cares that they're not passing the Regent State board exams? Cut the crap.
Right.
Why are we paying for curriculum that nobody's paying attention to?
Right.
The teachers can't even teach it because it's so convoluted. And it keeps changing every 2 to 3 years. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I'm going a little rant every time, but this stuff gets on my nerves. If we were to title this to anything, it would be called "Cut the Crap."
Yeah, or what did we say about the crops? The crop.
The crops. Stop feeding crap to the crops. You're over fertilizing, throwing money at it, and then it doesn't even hit anything. It's so frustrating, Dom. It is. And I watched this happen, and people are like, oh, well, you're a Trump supporter. Oh, it's freaking sense.
Well, the thing is that they have to give you a label. They have to, it's like you're not a can of corn on a shelf where we have to know what you are. They have to give you a label, and so having a label, you're going to have people that say, well, the funny thing is, I got into a debate with a mutual friend of ours a while ago. I'll tell you off air who this was.
Okay.
He goes, I know what you're going to say, and I don't like it. But you haven't heard what I'm going to say.
But you haven't heard anything.
But I know. I go, did you read what I said? No, I didn't read it because I know what it's going to say. It's like, it's impossible to argue with this. I mean,
yeah.
I know what you're going to say, and I don't like it.
Okay, fine.
Oh my God.
I'm at that place. You got to get to that place. Okay.
All right.
Fine.
So let's talk about your books and how people can get a hold of them. Let's do a little retail, or if they want to get a hold of you for a motivational talk. And I have to tell you, if there's somebody who wants to hire you to give a motivational talk,
yeah,
I will help fund that. Okay.
Okay.
No, I will do that seriously, because this goes back to our philosophy, my philosophy about giving money for good causes. You can give your money to the United Way. It's a great cause, but I don't know where the money's going. I would rather have, when I was at the dealership, I would rather have somebody on my drive line who couldn't afford to get their car fixed, you know, and fix their car. You know, at least I know where the money's going. So I'm going to make this offer to people. If you want DJ to come in and give a motivational talk, it's well worth it. I will fund that as long as we're not talking like $6.5 billion and it's going through
we don't do that.
Democratic National Committee or Republican.
Oh no.
But let's give people a way to get a hold of you.
So they can go. Thank you. First of all, thank you for that. And thank you for allowing me to be on your show. And I'm always willing to come on anytime because we really have some good conversation. For your people to be able to get a hold of me, they can go to drdjrobinson.com. So it's drdjrobinson.com. On that, they can find out all about me. They can find about my history, about my educational background, some of my philosophies. They can also find copies of the books under the products page. So if they go, Dr. DJ Robinson /products, they can find my book. I hope this helps someone. I'm actually revamping that book right now. So it's I found like 1 or 2 typos in the last edit. So, but they can get I hope this helps someone, a womanist perspective on spiritual and psychological trauma. I also have another book called Changing the Narrative about Black women, especially Black women in leadership as far as in the religious Black church. Right now, I'm actually doing some research that I'm going to probably post on an ebook online about the intersection between Pentecostalism, behavioralism, and social conditioning. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually doing a lot of good research around that. So I'm hoping to have that up on the website pretty soon as well. Other than that, any events that they'd like to if they'd like to get in touch with me, they can always subscribe to the page, and they can also make an appointment to have a consultation because I am a Myers-Briggs type indicator certified practitioner. So the MBTI.
So let's repeat that website, right? Is DR without a period, right? Is DR?
Yeah, just DRDJ
Robinson. DRDJ Robinson.
.com.
And I also know if you go to drdjrobinson.com, there's a way of making a tax-deductible contribution to her work. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Oh, thank you. So we have this organization called the Womanist Collective. And what it is it provides a brave space for women of color, especially Black women, to be able to articulate, to collaborate, and to promote their economic growth for themselves and for their families. We have spiritual and psychological empowerment sessions and trainings, parenting guides and things of that nature through this operation. And we meet regularly every first Monday to just have psychological check-ins, empowerment functions, and to get together to find out what we can do as women to empower our young people. So the group is called the Womanist Collective Incorporated, and it is tax deductible here in New York State.
Wonderful. Well, good. So, so everybody, thanks for listening. And we, every time, they say we'll see you next week, DJ. We don't see anybody unless you go to the YouTube. And even then, we don't see anybody.
Right.
You can listen to us at any time on my YouTube channel, or you can get to the YouTubes by going to nononsenseroundtable.com. So until then, thanks for listening, and have a great day.
Thanks for listening. Tune in every Saturday from 10 to 11 on News Radio Wham 1180. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll make more.